All right. Hi, everyone. Cool to see some familiar faces in here, but a lot of people I haven't met. So I'm Jessica Geis. I'm here to give this talk today, so I'm super excited to be with you all. Um, yeah, just go ahead and get started. Wait for a few more people to come in, Nikita. I guess I'll keep the chat open too on my end.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I'll just get into it. Like I said, I'm Jess, and I'm here to talk about building relationships within the art community, within entertainment, game design. I've been doing concept art for a couple of years now, and actually I work at my online art school as a manager. So I've kind of got a bit of experience working in a couple different avenues. I've kind of explored a lot of what networking and what cultivating relationships can mean. So I just want to kind of give some advice on all of that. Definitely feel free to ask questions in the chat. I have a couple of talking points I'll go through, but definitely I want to kind of hear you guys' experiences, hear your questions, and yeah, get to meet some of you guys. So also at the end, I can like give my contact if you want to like link up on LinkedIn or anything like that. So yeah, very excited. All right. So my first kind of point is why am I calling this a cultivating relationships talk and not like a networking talk per se? I think that the term networking is great. It's wonderful. You know, it's really important to be building networks, but sometimes it comes across a bit businessy, right? I feel like there's a connotation to have to be professional when you're networking, when there's a lot more to it, to making connections with people. So I called it cultivating relationships because it's more about who you know and kind of how you get to know them, not just, oh, they're like someone on LinkedIn I know. Um, so I will kind of go into a bit more of that. Just want to kind of preface with saying, yeah, that's kind of the point of that. And I also want to kind of ask a question to all you guys. If you have like your chat open, you can just like say yes or raise your hand with a little emoji or something. But how many of you guys have heard that's all about who you know in this industry? Anyone hear that or have heard that at least in the past? Yeah, got a couple of people. Maybe just raise your hand and I can't see it, but I will trust that yes. So I think a lot of us, we want to, if you're in this call, want to probably get into, yeah, a lot of thumbs up. I love to see it so many damn times. Yes, David. I think it's just so important to be making these connections. And I'm going to give you guys hopefully some tips that you may not have heard or even talk about my experiences and hopefully that'll help you out. But yes, I think that is definitely a question that we all kind of got to keep in mind. It's something I hear a lot, especially from recruiters, right? They're like, oh, you got to know the right people. I see a lot of times when people post on LinkedIn, for example, a posting for a job, and you see like 100 people like, yes, here's my portfolio, take it, hire me, right? And I think that's great, but you also want to be able to do more than that to kind of stand out from that huge crowd of people just saying, yes, I want that job. I'll talk about a few of those points that are on as well, but I want to kind of touch on that and kind of segueing into being professional and kind of what professionalism means. Um, I think we all kind of have our own idea about what a professional is, depending on the industry, depending on where you're from, like what you have seen as professional. So, for example, you see maybe like a doctor or a lawyer, like a doctor has their scrubs, a lawyer kind of goes to interviews with suits, and they kind of have this air about them. But I do think with the art community, it's a bit different. I think a lot of us can kind of be a bit more like our own self, like a bit more authentic with some things. Like for example, I'm doing this talk, I kind of put some makeup on, I put like a nice blouse on, but I could have also done this in like sweats or something, right? I felt comfortable enough to give this talk in like, you know, a pretty casual setting. But I also kind of want to be here to kind of talk about what I think is professional. And I think it just varies between different people or different approaches. Um, yeah, definitely depends on the industry. And I want to say like when someone's hiring, right? There is an air of professionalism you want to have. Like for example, oh, actually, I'm going to segue something really quick. Because I work at CD Spectrum as a manager, I've kind of gone through both sides of the hiring process. So like I do apply for jobs for concept art. That's what I kind of want to get into one day. But also for my job currently, I do a lot of hiring. So I kind of see what it takes to kind of be hired, I guess. Like, and I kind of get to experience that as well. So, for example, like if I'm hiring someone at my school, right, I hire technical assistants for different departments like modeling, concept art, and a lot of it kind of comes down to kind of the community aspect of all of that as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later on as well. But when I'm hiring, I kind of look for people who can be a team player, who can show that they have the skills to talk and to network, and also kind of be that person we kind of want to rely on. Like you want to be that person who's always wanting to take on extra work or always wanting to kind of prove yourself. There are a lot of times where I see a person that I want to hire, and I think that they're like super like talented, they have a great portfolio, but maybe just not quite the community aspect or like I feel like I can engage with, right? It comes down to yes, your skill and your talent, but also kind of being that person that can be a team player. Like people, like I said, it's all about who you know. If you're a team player, if you're a cool person, if people like you, they're definitely more likely to hire you. And I think when it comes down to just like being a cool person, it's just being authentic and being yourself. Um, Never, burning bridges or anything like that. You just kind of always want to be trying to meet people, trying to be outgoing. I know a lot of us, if we're artists, that might be kind of like maybe a little bit on the shy side. And I think that that's just something we all deal with. But if you want to get a job in the industry, it's kind of about like being present and being there for people. So you may be asking, how do we make these connections? How do we be authentic when we're talking to people, right? I'm going to kind of go through a couple different things, a couple different avenues. I'm sure people have done this. They've seen that you can work this way, but kind of how to be authentic in it. First of all, LinkedIn. That is so important, like those kind of professional platforms where you can kind of just meet people who you never might have been able to meet. Recruiters are always on LinkedIn. You can even just like knock on their door, like, hey, like, can I, in a professional way, obviously, like, introduce yourself. There's someone that can be approached on LinkedIn. Well, I do recommend those. If you do have a connection, use another connection to kind of meet that person. You don't want to just be like cold calling, like just knocking every recruiter's door, like, hey, like, like hire me, right? It's kind of about like if you can find someone in that maybe that profession or like at that company to introduce you. I've had a lot better luck of meeting people through LinkedIn, through recommendations or referrals. Like for example, there was a company that I would want to work at one day, and so I met someone like, "Hey, like you work here, right? Like, could you introduce me?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course." So we chatted through LinkedIn a little bit, and he set up a meeting with me and this recruiter, and I was very thankful for that. Um, don't forget to send like your thank you messages after. That's super important. Um, that kind of like definitely gets a foot in the door, right? You kind of have that way to talk to a recruiter you may not have had beforehand. Even if it's like someone that you think is like unapproachable, like they are a person, they are a human, and they're wanting to help you guys out. Like that's what recruiters are for. So my best suggestion is if you want to talk to someone on LinkedIn, try to have a way in. Like don't just like talk for the sake of talking. You want to kind of have a reason. Like maybe you saw a post that they made. Oh, I love this post. This is great advice. You build a rapport with that person slowly. And LinkedIn's a great way to just kind of build those networks kind of a bit by a bit. Another way to meet people is in-person meetups like conventions, which are super fun. I've got to meet a lot of really cool people through conventions, through my school, through local stuff as well. So if you're the type of person that is lucky enough to have those kind of local events, please use those. I can't tell you how important it is to have like to be able to talk to someone face to face when it comes to making these connections. Um, for example, I've gone to a couple different conventions, and there are people who I literally can remember from the year before. Like I've gone to Lightbox a couple times, and I see people like, "Hey, I saw you last year, right? Like, how's it going?" Like if you kind of be memorable in that way. Yeah, someone's heading to GDC. I went there a couple years as well. Like that's a really cool place just to meet people. If you live by those places, like definitely make the effort to go, especially like if you want to practice networking. Like that's like just a whole hub of people who like want to get to know you. They want to be meeting people and building their own connections. So even like something like a Comic Con, like I've gone to I think LA Comic Con before, and it's more like kind of like a fan area, but there are people who are artists who like want to like the vendors there who are artists who want to sell their work, right? That's something you can do. Like you meet those people, those can be connections, right? You just never know. And that's even like a fun place, right? It's not necessarily for maybe networking within the industry, but it's a kind of an avenue in, and it helps you kind of practice the speaking skills too. I imagine if we're all kind of into art, into gaming, we hold just kind of like a lot of different things. So I'm sure there has to be some kind of convention or meetup that you would like to go to. Um, and I'd say also probably the next thing would be like online communities or online classes. I can say like for CG Spectrum where I work, it's where I've studied school for the past 4 or 5 years. That's where I met Nikita. That's where I met a lot of cool people in this room right now. And I have to say that like that was probably the best decision I ever made was going to a school for my craft. And not only do you meet people who are like-minded, but it builds a sense of healthy competition. For example, I've been at this school for a long time. I've made like little circles of friends, and I really appreciate like them all. But there are some people like, oh, like they're really good. I want to kind of get to that level, and they really inspire me to keep going. Um, so think of your peers even as people you can possibly connect with. I think when it comes to like an online school, for example, where I'm at, it's an international school. There's lots of really cool people. Like you just never know what door could open from meeting someone. Like network with your mentors, network with your peers. Like these are the places to kind of build those connections in a bit of a safe space as well. Like we're all as a student, we're all still learning. I think probably a lot of us are probably students in here, right? Or at least maybe practicing our skill to get into the industry one day. When it comes to networking and like doing that within a school environment, I think it's just like the easiest way to kind of meet people and find common interests. Like at our school, we just made a D&D club, right? And I've met a lot of cool people through there. Having like doing fun stuff like that, getting to know someone on a deeper level through just like something you have in common. And then you can kind of build those connections through just like fun stuff like that. And lastly, my last point. Okay, so I missed all of the Discord talk. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Basically, a last point to kind of do a lot of networking could be within Discord. Obviously, Discord's not reliable, or at least on my end. So it's a great place to meet people. I want to bring in the fact that I had met someone through LinkedIn, and we had actually, I liked one of her posts on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, like I like talking to you. Let's meet over on Discord and kind of like chill and hang out and draw together. She's like, yeah, for sure. So I think bringing people into Discord or meeting people through Discord, again, it's like a safe space to kind of meet people. So I want to kind of talk about a few experiences I've had when it comes to networking, maybe some of the do's and don'ts that you might experience. I'd say like the first time I ever kind of met an industry person was actually like by accident. Like I was at my old work actually, and it was basically I was an art instructor, and it was a very small class. I actually only had two ladies come in. They were super nice. I got to talk with them because it's just the three of us. And because we were like, in a smaller group, I got to kind of connect like, hey, like, tell me about your life, like where you're from. How do you like the projects we're working on here? And it turned into, hey, like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a concept artist one day. And she's like, oh, well, my husband works at this company. And I'm like, that's like my dream company. Like, what? That's crazy. She's like, yeah, I can introduce you to this person. I had met her that night. And I guess we hit it off so well that she's like, hey, meet my husband. He can kind of get you to meet a couple people at this company you want to work with. I'm like, yes, please. Like, it's kind of like cool how I got to meet someone, and I never would have expected that to happen. Like, I just kind of opened myself up at my job. I just felt comfortable there talking to people. And it really helped just like kind of build my first connection, honestly, just from like chatting with some lady who was super nice and friendly. Obviously, it doesn't work out that way all the time, but I do think that like you never know what's going to happen if you just kind of keep talking to people. So that was really cool. I also want to kind of talk about my time at CG Spectrum a little bit more, just because it's been just like such an awesome opportunity for me. I was a concept art TA, technical assistant, and actually with Nikita. That's how I met Nikita, which is awesome. And then I kind of made my way up to head TA, which has been super cool. I got to meet a lot of cool people. And I never would have honestly felt I'd be comfortable talking like this with like 60 something people in like a Zoom room if I didn't have the experience that that job provided me when it comes to practice speaking or practice giving presentations. It's just really cool to be able to have these opportunities based on like what we've done in the past. Like when Nikita said, "Oh, I'm looking for people to speak," I like, yes, I would like to do that. That sounds really fun. Sounds like a great opportunity. And that's something where it's like, yeah, I just said yes to it as soon as I could. And now that I'm here, I get to talk with all you guys and hopefully give you guys some good advice. But again, that leads into just like always saying yes to opportunities. Like even if you're scared, even if you're hesitant, Um, just say yes. Like you never know what's gonna happen. So like, I got to meet Nikita. Now I get to speak to all you guys. So that's just been like a really cool time. Um, and then going back to being a TA for concept art, like I said yes to being a TA. And it was back when like I was still kind of new to what concept art even was. So I'm like, okay, like a little bit hesitant, like do I have the skills for this? But as I was TA, my skills kept growing. I got to meet more people and I get to build connections with people as like a TA. Like it's kind of a spot where I'm still with my peers, right? Within the school. But I also kind of get to do a couple awesome stuff like host events, host sessions, and so I think that, oh, sorry, TA. TA was just a technical assistant at my school. So what that meant is like for the different departments. For example, I'm a concept artist. I would help out concept artists within my department by giving like speeches or like helping them with like giving feedback and stuff like that. So I said yes to the opportunity to do that. And it's honestly been one of my life-changing things. Like I got to, again, meet people, practice just like talking. And that's kind of led to, the awesome opportunities I had later on, like meeting mentors there who kind of helped me practice other things. Like, oh, hey, we have this little opportunity for you, this little like freelance stuff. Do you want to do it? I'm like, yes, yes, I definitely do. So again, always saying yes. Um, and also, like I mentioned, I was like a teacher, like a bit of an art teacher for fun job before this. That was something where I also didn't feel super comfortable speaking publicly, and that helped a lot. Like kind of being forced to step outside my comfort zone, which a lot of us may resonate here. Uh, you joined late. So the school I'm from is CG Spectrum, which is an online art school. Basically, they do a lot of animation, like from the whole pipeline of getting into like the game and entertainment industry. Hopefully that answers your question, Tim. Um, yeah, of course. And then so going back to as an art teacher, like that kind of helped me overcome a lot of like public speaking. So I definitely recommend if you ever get the chance to just practice speaking, like it really helps a lot, especially if you want to get into the industry and we're all can be maybe a bit shy. That's something that definitely has helped my self-esteem as well. It made me feel more comfortable to talk to people. Um, and then also one of my first kind of freelance jobs I want to point out. Um, I remember I was on Fiverr for a bit. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this out. It's kind of like one of those places you can do practice doing some freelance. Wasn't on there for too long, but it helped me kind of get my first experience with like, with clients. And that was something like, okay, I don't think I'm good enough for this, but like, let me just try it. Like you kind of have to shove yourself into opportunities like that. Like maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I just like can't do it yet. But why not? Why not just try it? And you'll kind of practice when it comes to talking to clients, how like connections or communication can work with them. Um, exactly. You're never ready. S and I think that's just like the whole point of like even why I'm giving this speech is like, we're all here to get hopefully into the industry or practice a craft that we love professionally, maybe. So you're never ready, but just take that chance. And even if you keep getting rejection after rejection, it only kind of stops when you stop, right? Like whenever you feel like you can't do it anymore, that's kind of when the dream or that's when like the opportunities end. It's like, oh, I don't have the trust in myself for this. I know a lot of us have probably felt that in the past, like, or maybe you feel that right now. Like, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm here to also say that like you are. Um, and I don't think that we ever can totally feel ready. It's just about kind of like taking little steps to get there. And for me, I've taken a lot of little steps to get here, like working at my school, working at my art instructor job, working through different freelance opportunities, doing game jams. Like everything is a little step to get to where you will hopefully end up. We all have different journeys. In fact, it's kind of cool just to hear other people's journeys. Like here's me kind of talking about mine. Maybe something resonates with you. Maybe you've learned something new. But again, that's just like my own personal journey. I can only talk about that. But I definitely feel like we all will get there if we just keep practicing. Um, and I kind of want to get into more just like more general tips and notes on kind of what I feel like helps a lot when it comes to networking and just meeting people. Uh, First and foremost, being personable and relatable and just being a good person. Like I'm sure a lot of us here is like, that sounds easy, that sounds natural. But sometimes you meet people and like I do this sometimes as well. Like maybe I'll meet someone who I'm like, oh, like they're a so and so artist. Like why I can't approach them. They're like way like up here and I'm like down here. So I feel like keeping in mind that we're all human and that we're all just like, we all started somewhere as well. Like that person who you might look up to started where you are right now, or they're at where you are, or they had to start where, somewhere. So when I've gone to conventions, for instance, like I'll see someone like, oh, like that's so and so, like, should I go up talk to them? They're like, yeah, you should. I'm like, okay. And I have like my friends kind of like help me, encourage me to go over there, and be personable. And then that's kind of how you kind of make that connection with someone, right? I've had a lot of cool opportunities where like I'm like, oh, I talked to this person. They were actually really cool. Like they were actually understanding and like really easy to talk to and wanting to talk. Um, so again, being that kind of personable person, like again, the whole thing like never burning bridges, never like talking bad about people because you just never know what's gonna happen. But it's always kind of being your authentic self. Secondly, say yes to as much as you can. I know we can't say yes to everything. We have finite time, finite opportunities, but if you're someone who maybe doesn't know where to start, or you get some small opportunity, like, hey, this person wants to work on a game jam with you. Game jam is in, you kind of like get to build a little game for fun. If you ever heard of a game jam, they're awesome. If you want to be like in the art or the gaming industry, it's kind of a good way to kind of practice working on something like that. So someone's like, hey, like you're a modeler, like we need a modeler on this team. Like say yes, like what's the harm in trying something like that? You just like never know what that could lead to, like the cool portfolio piece you could get out of it, maybe make some good friends on a team you never knew you could make. I did a game jam last year. I actually with people I had never met. They were like from my online school in Italy. I'm like, I have never met you, but you were posting you want a concept artist. Here I am. I'm a concept artist. Let's work on this thing together. And we made a super cool little project out of it. So, and I got to like meet some awesome people. Maybe I think they were like programmers and game designers. Like, hey, if I ever need a game designer, I can hit you up, right? Like we've made that kind of connection and rapport. So stuff like that, just like always saying yes and just trying new things. And you may find that you really want, like, if you do a game jam, like, oh, maybe I like the game process. Maybe if you want to be like either entertainment, like movies or games, that could be a really cool way. Like, oh, I actually like the game pipeline. Like, I want to work more in games. That can kind of help you with that decision. So you kind of don't know what even you'd like until you try something new or try something different. Um, so yes, please say yes. Like example, I said yes to this, like, and now I get to talk to all you guys, and that was something where why not? Like, why not just give it a try? Um, Next is keeping in mind is professional courtesy. Kind of going back to earlier when I was talking about being on LinkedIn, like how to message people. Um, there are ways that you can kind of present yourself a bit better. Like I mentioned, like knowing someone, having someone introduce you, um, making small little connections with people to kind of build up your network very slowly. I know a lot of times you just want to meet people and like you just want these connections right away, right? You want to meet people, you want to get to know them, but it just takes time. Like everyone has their own life going on. We all have our own experiences, like you just don't know about. So just being keeping in professional courtesy, like keeping in mind that that person, if they don't reach back, like respond to you after a couple days, like, oh, they're not responding to me. What did I do wrong? Like they hate me. Like, no, they have their own lives going on. Give them a gentle little nudge, like, hey, just following up with this message I sent you. And 9 times out of 10, they'd be like, oh, shoot, sorry, I forgot I had something else going on, right? Like professional follow-ups, being just like professional online, having that reputation, like, oh, this person, like, they're super cool because they like always talk on my LinkedIn pages and like they're easy to talk to. So kind of like keeping in mind that like your little paper trail is whatever platform you use. If it's Instagram, if it's LinkedIn, if it's even Discord, right? You still want a sense of professionality when it comes to meeting, like even in like a fun Discord, like trying to be like yourself. And I think that's a good way to practice that. Um, Again, keeping in mind that people like the artists that we look up to, they are just like us and they have like their own experiences. So, even if you wanted to know like an artist, like, hey, can I hear about your journey? Like asking them personal questions like that. It doesn't have to always be reciprocated, right? You may feel like guilty, like, oh, like I'm taking this person's time, like, they think I have ulterior motives or whatever. Like, no, you just want to get to know them as a person. Like, I've met so many cool people that I never thought I'd be friends with because just like we connect on something, right? Something small, like, oh, you like this thing, I like this thing, and then that kind of helps. Same thing with professionals. Like even if you go to like their booth, you see they like fan art of something, like a show that you like, oh, you like this show? Like I also like this show. Like here's like what I love about it. And then they'd be like, oh, that's so cool. Like, um, that kind of gets the conversation going. So if you want to approach someone, think of ways to approach them and like a very easygoing way. Like don't go up to them like, oh, like fan. I've done that before too. I've like gone up to someone like fangirl, like, oh my god, like you're awesome, and then they're just like, what are you doing? Like, don't be that person. Like I've gone through a lot of different like experiences when it comes to networking, right? To kind of learn, oh, that was probably a little too pushy or a little bit too like, excited. So like, okay, reel it back. Like, let's talk to them like they're a person and just have a nice casual conversation. Um, Mary says, do you have any advice for new artists or new people in the industry that's starting to create relationships? Yeah. I mean, even like being in here, Mary, like even talking to these people in this Discord, starting small, making little connections with people. You don't have to always go towards like the recruiter right away. Like, oh, I have to connect with this person. Like, try to find other people you can relate to as well to kind of meet that recruiter, kind of meet those people in the company you want to work at. I know that first step can be super hard, and I was totally like I can relate to that, like kind of being nervous to even try, like where do you even start with networking, right? In building relationships. Hopefully, what I've talked about today it gives you some ideas as well on just what can be helpful. But I think the best way is just to kind of like just find something in common, find something you can relate to with a person. If you see someone in like a Discord call that you really want to be friends with, they seem like a cool person, like approach them in a way that, you'd want to be approached, right? Like, think about how you can come off, like how you can come across, like, oh, like this person is super cool because you're super cool probably too, right? Like, I don't know you, but if that you're here and like want to listen to my talk, like I appreciate that, and just taking small little steps. Yeah, also, if anyone has any questions, I'm kind of finishing up my main points. Definitely ask them in the chat, and I'll hopefully give the best advice that I can. But yes, I think my last point was literally just like, connections take time. So please, like, don't rush into things. For example, I've been probably practicing networking the past like 3 or 4 years, probably more seriously. Like, I went to college for graphic design, graduated about 2020, and I pivoted immediately. Like, actually, I want to go into concept art and kind of starting from scratch a bit. And that was kind of the hardest part is like, okay, what is this thing that I want to do? Like, let me learn about concept art. Let me learn about what this industry is like. I'm like, oh, I'll do something with like advertising. But no, I want to get into the game industry, the entertainment industry. Let me research this. Let me see what it takes to kind of be within this industry. Like, I didn't grow up playing too many games, but now I start practicing, like playing different games. Like, I'm like, okay, like how does this gameplay work? It makes me think about things differently. When I design characters now, it's like, okay, like how do these worlds and these characters fit together? So wherever you want to kind of get a foot in the door, if it's entertainment, watch more movies. If it's games, play more games. There's always going to be, especially like if you know what niche you want to be in. Like if you want to get into um, mobile games, for instance, you can play some mobile games. Like there are lots of branches you can kind of go off of. It just kind of depends like where you want to go, and kind of even targeting your portfolio. And it's kind of a bit off from like the networking. It's a bit more portfolio talk, I guess, but targeting like where you want to end up, like finding artists that have similar styles to you, kind of working with them, like emulating some of their techniques, right? For example, I've met some really cool artists, like, and their styles really influenced where my style kind of ended up. So I'm like, hey, like I love your work. Can you tell me how you did this? Like this could be a stepping stone, right? Like, how did you do this environment piece? Like, I want to know your process. And then I'm like, hey, like I will do a piece like this, like using your process. Like, can you take a look at it? Right now, I actually have a really cool person in the industry who's helping me work on a little project. And I'm like, hey, like, how would you approach this? And he's been super helpful and just saying, like, here's some resources. He's like, I'll give you a little feedback whenever you want. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's a connection where it's been like super nice to have someone that can kind of look over my work and give me some feedback. Um, Reach out to some artists you like, and sometimes they can lead to a lot more. Exactly. I know, Patrick, you've done that. That's helped you with your work. I think that when it comes to meeting people, like always be like, okay, like what do we have in common? Like what can we talk about? And then like that can just lead to different things. Um, Tim says, I am a character artist for 3D, but want to get into drawing for a hobby. What's the best way to approach this from scratch? Yeah, there's lots of things you can do with, especially with like how online school and YouTube is like everywhere. There's so many like videos you can click on to kind of give you some advice. Yeah, I'm sure there are tons of like great YouTube like channels out there. Obviously, Proko is one of them. The school obviously that like I went to has really been a big impact on how I've grown as an artist. So finding the place that works for you, um, doing research. Like I remember when I graduated college, I didn't know where I wanted to go after because I went to, for graphic design and I found CD Spectrum. I'm like, hey, this sounds actually kind of what I want to do. Like it's literally for concept art and illustration for the entertainment industry. I'm like, yes, that's kind of where I want to go. So doing the research and kind of finding the right place, like the right little path for you, can open a lot of doors. So that might be a decision where you kind of take some time to think about it. So for example, if you want to get into drawing from scratch, just quick Google search, like what are some cool like online, if there's someplace local to you, like I don't know where you're from, but do you ever like go out and find maybe a little school nearby or like little bigger drawing classes, courses like that? That's where I also find local places that I like to kind of go out and draw. So um Nikita says, have you ever found yourself feeling very introverted and hesitant to network? How do you manage this? Any mindset tips? Yes. I would say that even before coming here, I'd call myself a bit of an extroverted introvert, where like I like to be around people, but also I like my introverted time and space. So if you're an introvert, definitely taking small steps, again, like meeting someone through a Discord if you're comfortable with that, or taking again, like maybe you play games, like you like to play some online games with people, right? That is networking. Like you can find some kind of like, if you really want to work on a certain game, like Overwatch, play Overwatch. You might meet some cool people while you're playing. Join communities that are like, play that and be like, hey, by the way, I'm an artist. Like, and there could be someone in there who's also an artist, and that can be a little connection right there. Like, there are a lot of ways where you can just kind of like do it in like a way that's comfortable for you. You may not be ready to kind of jump into like a convention or something, right? And I totally get that. Like that can be intimidating. Even just like go with a friend. Like my first convention I went to, LA Comic Con, I brought someone with me. Like, hey, like I'm going to talk to some people. Can you just like be there as like a support system, right? They weren't even into art. They didn't even like. They didn't want to go. I'm like, just come with me so I can have someone I can like lean on a bit. And they're like, sure. So that was like me practicing my communication skills in like a big panel or a big convention because I had someone there that like kind of could help me. Um, so I hope that answers some of that question. As far as mindset goes, just taking one thing at a time. Again, connections and networks, they take time to kind of build up. Start small. Like start with like, if you're on LinkedIn, for example, even find people that went to the same school that you did, right? Like it doesn't have to be somebody in your class. Like, oh, I've heard of this person. They were a grade above me. Like, let me send a little connection to them. Like, hey, we went to the same school. Like, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to kind of give you some advice and help you out. But I'd say just be sure to just like take your own time with it. There are lots of like cool opportunities to network just probably all around you. It's kind of just like, how do you find them and how do you feel comfortable to approach and to pursue those? Um, Grayscale, I've always felt like you need to have a top level artist before you can get a real job in the industry, but I'm the type that learns and improves better while I'm on the job. Am I wrong about this? I don't think so. I mean, there are lots of companies that will hire interns or will hire people honestly based on if they like them or not. Like if you're someone who like, hey, I might not be at that level yet, but if you're a really cool person, they would definitely hire someone that they can connect with over someone that's like probably the best artist, right? If you're a really great artist, again, not the best social skills, it might be kind of hard. But if you're someone who they can teach and they can see grow and has potential, they would take a chance on you over someone who may be like the best artist, right? Because they can see the promise in that. Like, for example, I did my first kind of freelance job and I didn't feel ready. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But that person can probably also tell it's kind of new, and they were like super nice about it. Like, hey, like let's work through this together. Like I did some characters for them, and they were super nice. They're like, hey, I want to do like a little illustration now for me. I'm like, great, I can do that for you as well. Like that's like me practicing that. So you don't have to always go for like the top of the top job right away. Start with like a smaller job, like a place maybe you can intern for a bit. A lot of internships can turn into real like longer lasting jobs. A lot of people get jobs through internships or get jobs through knowing people. So if you are a cool person, you have a probably higher chance of getting hired, even if you don't have the skills quite yet. I find it easier to talk to people in real life since the messages, but you can't always meet people. How do you approach that? Um, I know that can be hard, Cecile, when it comes to maybe being in an area that doesn't have a lot of people with the same interest as you. Um, but I think if you do enough research, like a lot of like meetups, like you find online meetups of places that are local to you, just do a bit of digging. Like I found a lot of cool figure drawing classes through meetups online, like the local places I never even knew existed. Like, hey, I want to do a figure drawing class. Like, where can I find this? So I Googled it and there were like a bunch near me. I just had no idea. Like when I went to these and then I went to these, I'm like, oh, I got to meet a lot of cool people at these classes, right? So it's all about kind of doing the little small steps. Um, oh, Mary said, yeah, CD Spectrum is a school I went to. So that's kind of like I've talked about that a little bit in here, but just really quick, yeah, that's where I'm currently also working as a like a little art manager. Thanks for that, Patrick. Um, Grace in Montana. I'm sure there has to be something near you in Montana. So I also live in the States, by the way. I've been to California. And I also realize that I am very fortunate that I do live close to LA, and that's helped a lot with in-person meetups. So if you are someone that does live a little bit like maybe where there isn't as much of an industry presence, you can try to even create one, right? Like try to talk to people, even if like just like work on a small game or something. There can be people who are like my IT, like, hey, I also don't have this opportunity around me, like, and like, hey, like, but let's pursue this together. Let's work on a game together, right? Like, even finding the people that have like-minded interests can help a lot, just to kind of motivate you. Again, I realize we can't always travel to a convention that's hours away, or but if it's something you want to do, you can try to like save up for it maybe, or like try to make it a goal to go to these things. For example, I go to Lightbox, which is in LA every year. The last couple of years I've gone. Um, Again, I am very fortunate I got to go there. It's local, but there are people I went with that are from Europe, that are from a whole other continent, and they came over just to kind of hang out as well. So, um, you just like kind of never know, like when you come to this place, like, oh, like there are a lot of cool opportunities here. Um, so I hope I'm also answering all these questions. Okay, if I have any clarification, you can also let me know. Liz says, what are some ways to show personality while still staying professional? For example, I like being a bit more personable in my bios and on social posts and LinkedIn, but I kind of get in my head and end up just writing something a bit more generic. Yeah, definitely. If you can find a way to bring your personality across online, like when you're typing. For me, I like using exclamation points. I like to be a bit more of a happy person as well. So I feel like don't be afraid to be less than or be more than generic. I think those are the people that kind of stand out as well. This might be also kind of a weird thing to say, but like analyzing different types of professional responses. Like if you want to be in a certain company, right, and you see them kind of always posting on LinkedIn, how are they typing? What are their mannerisms like? Are they a pretty approachable person? You can kind of tell at this day and age how we all have our own kind of way of typing and stuff. Um, Kind of being analytical of like, okay, this person uses a lot of emojis and this person uses a lot of exclamation points. So they seem like, they can be easier to approach. And there may be some people who just like don't like that. They're like, hey, here's my quick little message, right? Especially me being at international school, I realize a lot that we all have very different backgrounds and very different ways of thinking and communicating. And sometimes it's like, wait, you're like very just like to the point. I'm like, I'm just not used to that. But I'm like, no, it's just like the way, it's how they're raised. Like keeping cultural backgrounds in mind as well. So that's been like something for me. Yeah, Penny, exactly. Reading the room, doing research on like what you're talking about. Um, if you get a bubbly influencer recruiter, they'll probably be more receptive to that. Yeah, and honestly, you never know if you do have an interview, what the recruiter is going to be like. Like maybe spend the first couple minutes feeling out the room. If you have an interview, maybe there's multiple people in the interview room, right? Maybe one of them is a bit more, you kind of vibe with a bit better, a bit more personable, right? Kind of lean onto that person and approach that person a bit more. Um, Also, when it comes to, you know, networking or like interviews, for example, keep in mind that maybe this person's like 10th interview of the day. They might be kind of tired. They might not be as receptive. And just kind of like leaning like, okay, like let me just be a bit more professional. Let me just kind of talk a bit more clearly. Reading the room, kind of seeing like making sure that you kind of still can have that connection. But if it's someone super outgoing, you feel super comfortable with them, then just kind of be a bit more fun with it. Yeah, but that's exactly right, Penny. Just like reading the room and just kind of seeing what the vibe is like and kind of reflecting off of that. I know that can be kind of hard, but like especially how remote everything is, online everything is. You kind of never quite can tell, but just like sticking to like your beliefs and like your personality is like kind of a good way to approach it. I think we're kind of running on like the 40-minute mark, so we can take maybe a few more questions if you guys have anything else you want to ask. I've kind of gone through most of my talking points. Just kind of here to answer any questions. Yeah, and hopefully something I've said has helped. Or, I'm sure you probably heard a lot of this before, but maybe just hearing it again is always super helpful. Um, yeah, I just keep talking, like I don't mind. Um, you're great at public speaking. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's honestly, again, for me practicing this a lot. Like, I feel like I even like coming forward, it's like, oh, like I'm still kind of nervous to talk to people, but like I have practiced it a lot. I definitely feel more comfortable with it. Sitting down before this, like listening to music and vibing, like, okay, and then I kind of come into it with like an open mind. You guys are so nice. Thank you. I don't know, Nikita, is there anything else that if you want me to touch on, I am more than happy to stick around for a little bit longer. So mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, like, it's honestly like I'm super happy to even be here and talk to you guys. Like, again, if you ever want to connect with me, definitely feel free to like on LinkedIn or any other platform. If you have any like other questions too, like, I'm always more than happy just to like talk with people. Like, I've done some portfolio reviews, I've done like little talks like this in the past, so I'm definitely like always happy just to kind of reach out and help in any way that I can. So
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate that. Yeah. So
yeah,
I was
yeah, of course.
trying to add something there to see if we've got any more questions, but I don't see any more. So I feel like we could, yeah, call it there. But that was a really amazing session, Jess. I really appreciate you coming in to do that.
Yeah,
And everyone
yeah, of
here,
course.
thanks so much. I hope that you enjoyed it. And also, Jess, I don't want to just put you out there, but Jess is on Discord, so if you want to ping her as well or go on LinkedIn,
Yep.
definitely, like she said, but ask questions. I know some people can be
Hmm.
a little bit shy, like now, even to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Uh,
everyone who's in here, like, please, like, don't be a stranger. You're definitely welcome to like reach out. So
cool. Thanks so much. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah. I feel like there's something else that I'm forgetting, but we'll see you all in the next one. And again, thank you so much, Jess.
yeah. Thank you, Nakia. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.